If you'd like to comment, please use the raise your hand button. If you're an attendee, you will be in listen-only mode. All attendees will remain in listen-only mode unless unmuted by SBCAG staff to provide public comment. Comments from the public are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. The public will not be able to share their video or screen. When public comment is called on for an agenda item, attendees may use the raise your hand button to express desire to provide public comment for that item, and you will be unmuted when it is your turn. Those calling on the phone can dial *9 to raise your hand. Thank you, and those conclude my Zoom reminders.
Thank you for that. All right, item 3 is public comment. The public may address the Santa Barbara County Association of Governments on any subject within the jurisdiction of the board that is not included as part of this agenda. Comment shall be limited to no more than 15 minutes, divided among those desiring to speak, but no person shall speak longer than 3 minutes. Do we have any public comment not on the agenda in the room here in Santa Barbara?
Chair Osborne, we have one request for public comment. Mr. Scott Wentz.
The floor is now yours.
Before I start my public comment, I'd like to have a video of what just went on 5 minutes before this started.
So would I.
It's amazing. You guys are actually human beings. Scott Wins representing Cars Are Basic. Last year, we came before you and made a proposal that this organization take a vote on shortening of daylight savings time. It's part of medical science. There's actually an entire medical community having to do with sleep and health. And I think it'd be a great idea for you to ask the state of California to truncate the daylight savings time by 1 month in the fall and 1 month in the spring. Secondly, we made a proposal to you about MTD and changing the organization of transit in Santa Barbara County. You refused to even address that issue. There wasn't a comment from Director Kern, which I did not expect. There wasn't a comment from any of the board members. We gave you a proposal that was 100% proven in other cities throughout the world. We think you really should be getting in contact with us because you can save the taxpayers literally tens of millions of dollars every year by going with our proposal. And looking through some of your subcommittees and so forth, we find out that you're going out of state to look at an organization to look at MTD. Why? You have this organization. We've been here for 25 years. We've never taken a dime of taxpayers' money. We've never asked for a dime of taxpayers' money. And we're here to help you. We have the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment requests from Santa Maria or online?
Chair Osborne, no one online would like public comment.
All right. Hearing no one in Santa Maria, I will close public comment and move to item 4, which is closed session.
Chair and directors, today the board is agendized to discuss one item in closed session, conference with real property negotiators per Government Code 54956.8. The real property at issue is owned by Union Pacific Railroad with assessor parcel numbers 007010001 and 007010003. The agency negotiators are SBCAG Executive Director Margie Kern and Fred Luna, Director of Project Development and Construction. And before recessing to closed session, I'd recommend making sure there is no public comment.
Any public comment on this item either here in Santa Maria or online?
Chair Osborne, there's no request for public comment here in Santa Barbara, and I see no requests from the participating attendees.
Hearing none from Santa Maria, we will close public comment on item 4 and recess to discuss item 4 and be back as soon as we're done, hopefully 20 minutes. All right, thank you. Back from closed session. Any reportable action from closed session?
Chair and directors, today the board met in closed session to discuss one item, conference with real property negotiators, and the board took no reportable actions.
Thank you. All right, we will move on to item 5, approval of consent calendar. Is there anyone who would like to pull an item or have? All right,
Yes, Chair Osborne, I'd like to pull 5C.
5C. All right,
And then we have item 5B for public comment.
item 5B for public comment. Anyone online or in Santa Maria?
Not here.
All right, thank you.
I'd like to make note that Mayor Infante is here now.
Thank you. We appreciate you recognizing that for the public. All right, so we're pulling 5C, and do we want to do public comment first or pull item 5C? Which do we do first? My discretion. All right, so we'll pull item 5C first and let you read that into the record.
The longest one. Item 5C, Highway 101 Summerlin 4C landscaping. 5C1, adopt resolution 2311 approving cooperative agreement 050424 with Caltrans for the Highway 101 Summerlin project and acknowledge appropriation funds. And 5C2, approve and authorize the executive director to execute a cooperative agreement with Caltrans 050424, similar to attached and based upon review and concurrence by legal counsel for the landscaping phase of the Highway 101 Summerlin 4C project. The total agreement amount is $5,863,000, including SBCAG's contribution of $2 million in Measure A funds, $476,000 in Regional Improvement Program funds, and $531,000 in SB1 funds from a local partnership program formula program. 5C3, approve and authorize the executive director to execute amendments to the funding summary pursuant to Article 18 of the agreement that will increase the State Highway Operation and Protection Program SHOP funds or shift funding contributions between phases with non-SHOP funds, so long as it does not increase the overall funding contribution by SBCAG. The board must approve contributions from additional funding sources such as Measure A if required.
Yes, thank you, Chair Osborne. I pulled this item as we get further and further along in the Highway 101 widening project and the continued investment that we're making as an organization and the regional dollars that continue to go into this project that furthers delays projects being built and invested in other parts of the county. I'm going to continue to bring some of these up and address them. 6B will be another one that I'll talk about today. But I just want to make sure the $2 million Measure A funds, that's part of the $140 million investment that the taxpayers committed to. Is that correct?
Director Nelson, and through the chair, yes, it is. And in fact, this is an item that was technically the funding had already been kind of previously approved because the landscaping is just kind of a follow-up contract from the roadway construction, and so we're just entering into final pricing for this work. And it does appear that there'll be some cost savings on this, but we did ask for the kind of the full programmed amount, and then we'll be able to perhaps pull out some of the Measure A that was previously programmed for this.
Great. And I guess the other question, and it goes along with some of that cost savings, as we get all these parallel projects that continue to come to us that we tend to fund or funding, are we doing some value engineering on some of these? I'll bring this up again on 6B. Some of these tend to be quite large numbers. Are we looking at opportunities to potentially reduce the scope where possible?
So Director Nelson, I'll answer that. Yeah, we're always doing value engineering. We're always doing a kind of a risk assessment and lessons learned as a broader project team. That's kind of a standard practice at most of our project team meetings. Tomorrow we have corridor-wide partnering meeting, and that's always something. What can we learn? What did we learn from previous corridors as far as risks? And then that in essence sometimes is balanced by escalating costs that we're seeing throughout the corridor, and sometimes you have no control over those things. But what can we do to kind of either shorten those timelines or making sure that we have the materials available when we need them so that it doesn't further increase costs?
Yeah, thank you. That's it.
All right. And then public comment on 5B.
Yes, first I'll read it into record. 5B, formal amendment 2 to the 2023 Federal Transportation Improvement Program. Adopt Resolution 2310, amending the 2023 Federal Transportation Improvement Program through formal amendment number 2 to program congressionally directed funds to the US 101 Segment 4D North Project and program Active Transportation Program Cycle 6 funds to 7 individually listed projects. This amendment also programs additional funding to 3 existing Santa Barbara MTD projects. And Mr. Scott Wins would like to make public comment on this.
Floor is now yours.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Scott Wins representing Cars Are Basic. To remind those that are new to the board, this is the organization that uncovered the criminal and unethical conduct by MTD over the years. We forced the resignation of the director of MTD, the resignation of 50% of MTD boards. We find that MTD has been improperly operated over the years. We see once again that MTD lost 18% of its shuttle ridership in downtown Santa Barbara between 2018 and 2019 after MTD bought 14 all-electric buses. No money should be going to MTD. MTD should be eliminated. Let's go back to the issue that we have proposed to you and you have ignored, that we have a proposal that will eliminate MTD as an operating organization and save the taxpayers $10 to $20 million a year and will provide greater access to the public. That's number one. Number two, active transportation. This is a joke. We have watched active transportation crater in South County. There are fewer bicyclists on the streets of Santa Barbara, and there are fewer people walking in the streets of Carpinteria and Goleta than there were 15, 20 years ago. If this weren't a joke, we wouldn't be here making the comment. We've watched the city of Santa Barbara create a Brown Act violation on its West Side Transportation Capital Improvements Program. We've watched the city of Goleta create a Brown Act violation having to do with Hollister. There has been no issue brought up before this board by your director or by your staff having to do with what's going on here. If you have cities that are willing to actively violate the law and have been notified that they were in violation of the law, then this organization is irrelevant and you should dissolve yourselves. MTD has a issue of fare box return. The state of California changed the rules allowing accelerated depreciation that gave MTD its ability to say, we have over 18% return on our fare box return. Never happened. This has to stop. You have to stop wasting taxpayers' money.
Thank you. No more public comment?
Chair Osborne, that's all we had for public comment on that item.
All righty. All right. Any other questions or concerns before we entertain a motion for consent calendar? All right, I'll entertain a motion for consent calendar.
Move we adopt the consent calendar.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Director Williams?
Aye.
Capps?
Aye.
Hartman?
Aye.
Nelson? Aye. Lavanino? Aye. Infante?
Aye.
Julian?
Aye.
King?
Aye.
Patino?
Aye.
Clarodi?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Rouse?
Aye.
And Chair Osborne.
Aye.
Motion passes 13-0.
Thank you. All right, now we move on to items 6, and we'll start with 6A.
Thank you, Chair Osborne. 6A is draft SBCAG 2023-24 overall work program and budget. Review and comment on the draft fiscal year 2023-24 SBCAG overall work program and budget, which will be considered for adoption at the April 20th, 2023 board meeting.
Madam Chair, members of the board, this is our annual presentation of the overall work program and budget. We'd like to give you an overview of what we are going to talk about today, Lauren. I always, it's all good. I like to get this opportunity to give you the budget and what we're proposing for next year. But before I do that, I do like to talk about what's happened this prior year and our accomplishments to date. I do want to remind you of our mission and vision. This was adopted by the board in 2015, and it still applies today. If the board has a desire to update this, please let me know. But we are continuing to implement this vision and mission that you have adopted for us. So moving on to our accomplishments for 2022, I use this a lot, and when I make presentations about SBCAG, we're a small agency that does big things. We have a small number of staff, but the things we have accomplished, I think, are tremendous and a benefit to the region, and I'm really proud to work for SBCAG. So we made this presentation to the executive committee a month or so ago, and one of the comments was from Director Lavinino that he would like to see a little more entertainment value in our presentation. So we prepared this top 10 list of the highlights from 2022. So if you don't mind, if you can indulge me to listen to this. So that was our video. That's your entertainment for the day. Not again. But the video went over this quickly. We did do some staff photos this past year, and I just wanted to share and brag about how good looking we all are and how we dress up very nicely. And then this next slide is when we were out and about having some fun in Carpinteria. This was our Foot Frenzy race that we do every year. We pick a city, and we have one or two of our staff develop a scavenger hunt, so we learn more about the community. And this past year was Carpinteria, and we got a lot of attention with those red capes running around your city. This other event that we had this past holiday season, we had a murder mystery party. It was an 80s themed murder mystery party, and I was a Madonna wannabe. And we had Marty McFly and Molly Ringwald and Mean Girls. We had a lot of great representation. Everybody had a lot of fun, and Terry was the murderer. Or excuse me, Mean Girls. I forget what your mean girl name was. Anyway. Okay, so just to show you that we're a small but mighty agency, but we'd still like to have fun in between getting our work done. So the overall work program, I think it's a very valuable document for SBCAG. It's required by law. So to do what we do, we have to do this. But next slide, it does provide a management tool for the agency at every level. This is basically our Bible for the year of what we intend to do and what we intend to accomplish, the tasks that we intend to do and assign to our staff, and the budget and all the direct costs associated with accomplishing those work elements, as we call them. So everything we do is assigned a work element, and we charge our time and costs associated with that. So again, it provides accountability. I use this tool to manage our management team, and we meet actually every week to identify what we're doing. for that week, but we also meet every quarter to see how we're accomplishing our goals and adjusting if needed, and our budget, making sure we're on track of spending our money diligently and efficiently, and making sure that we're on budget. And it's a communication tool. You can use this to know what we're doing. And if anybody says, what is SBCAG and what do they do? This is a huge document that you can give them and say, this is what they do. So for 2023, I'm really excited about this year. This is going to be implementation year. We're going to get a lot of things done, and I'd like to highlight a few of those in the next slide. I'm expecting to have a lot of ribbon cuttings this year. We have a lot of projects under construction right now, and I'm going to be inviting you, for the Olive Mill Roundabout, the Santa Claus Bike Lane, the San Ysidro Roundabout, the Summerlin Highway 101 segment, the actual main line, the Black Road interchange projects. We're going to also have a ribbon cutting for, and the list goes on. So we may have even more groundbreakings too. So things are going to be happening. We're going to be very busy, and we're going to be inviting you to a lot of parties to celebrate those things. In addition to those things, we are also looking at a big data travel trends analysis. I know several of you have asked about commuters and where people are going. So we're going to be collecting that data and presenting that to you so you can have that information at your fingertips, and we'll have a dashboard type of site where you can access that information. And the broadband strategic plan, I see a lot of effort. We're going to be implementing the broadband strategic plan. We're right now in the limbo land of getting funding from the PUC. We hope that's resolved in the next month or so. And then we're also pursuing legislation so that little hiccup won't happen in the future, to allow MPOs such as SBCAG to be eligible for future funding to implement broadband. And I think we have a lot of support to do that. And then the zero emission vehicle strategy, which we hope to adopt in the next month or so. There's funding opportunities to install charging infrastructure. So this will be an opportunity for us as SBCAG and the region to provide more infrastructure for zero emission vehicles. And then our goal for Easy Bike is to be more employer friendly, where employers are the sites that we'll be going to, and having those bikes used for those employees to try out, to encourage alternative modes of travel to and from work. And then the last but not least, we're implementing a new rideshare incentive rewards program that you'll be hearing about in the next month or so, where it gives people bonuses or rewards on an app if they're actually ride sharing, and it shows that they are when you have your ride share coordinator or a partner in the car with you. So it actually tracks people that are ride sharing, and we can get more data about ride sharing, van pooling, and people taking transit in those via the app. So now I'm going to get into the numbers. I'm warning you, it's getting into the minutia of what SBCAG does and why we do it and how we pay for what we do. Overall, our budget is very healthy. We've been getting increases in federal funding. It's been a nationwide trend, so we're doing very well. This budget is overall, this is just a summary of all the funds that I'm going to be talking about in the next few minutes. Overall, it's an increase of what we had last year, but really the increase is the implementation of projects that I just spoke about. We're putting money on the ground, and it's coming through SBCAG to implement those projects. So we have those things in our budgets to pay for that construction of that work. So it's about 17% higher than it was last year. It's a $10 million increase in our overall budget. And again, Measure A is the primary factor. So the Measure A money that we've been collecting for the last 13 years now, we've been holding for this opportunity to spend it on these projects, so that's happening. When I presented this to and I'm not telling you to move forward either, you're keeping up with me, thank you. When I presented it to the executive committee, they asked for excuse me, I'm skipping ahead. So this, move one ahead. I always like to point this out. This is our discretionary grants that we get to fund our agency in doing what we do. 20 million of the 76 million, 77 million is from discretionary grants. So this is basically outside sources coming into SBCAG and implementing that. So $20 million is coming into our agency to support what we do. And that just gives me a seal of approval. We're doing the right thing of attracting other dollars because they're giving us that money. One of the questions that was brought up at the executive committee meeting was how much money you pass through. So that it's not necessarily included in our overall budget because we basically, you all make the decision on how that money's spent and it goes directly to the jurisdictions. So we put together a slide that shows almost $70 million on top of our $77 million budget is passed through to the jurisdictions to do what you all do. So we administer this, we take a resolution to the board and we work with the county to distribute these funds. It's our local transportation funds, transit funds, state of good repair. Measure A is a major funding source that we pass through, and the surface transportation program dollars and low carbon transit operations program. So we do more than what is included in our budget, but so this is, I just want to point out that this is outside of the actual budget of SBCAG. Okay, getting into a little more of the details of each of those funds. This is our what we call our general fund revenue. It pays for the staff and the contracts we have to hire consultants to help us do what we do. So overall, it's $6 million of our $76 million budget, or $77 million budget is in our general fund. And basically, this is the formula money that SBCAG gets to do what we do. State and federal resources pay for almost half of our budget. So that's why this overall work program is so important to me, because we wouldn't exist without it, because we wouldn't be able to get the state and federal resources if we did not do this document. The Measure A is another source of funding. We do charge for our staff when we're implementing projects directly to those projects, as well as an administration fee. Okay, moving on. So our general fund, this is a little more detail on the salaries and benefits and the direct costs of professional services. It doesn't have the same background as the one I'm looking at, but anyway, okay. So 6 million, it's all the same numbers. Okay, 6 million is for our staff and the indirect expenses and professional services. Okay, and then the next slide gets into a little more detail about that. It's our 20 full-time positions. I am proposing a little maneuvering. We're not adding any positions, but I'm deleting a administrative assistant that we had on our books for the last couple of years because we had a retirement and we decided not to fill that position. But I'm also adding a project manager to work under the broadband and the project implementation with Fred, and having some crossover training and moving forward in succession planning. So there's a little maneuvering of those positions and where those full-time equivalents are allocated in the overall work program. We are proposing nope, not done yet. We are proposing a cost of living. When we did we have a resolution that this board adopted at the previous year. It says that we have to look at the actual consumer price index. And when we looked at that, for the average for the past year, it was 7.5%. We are not proposing a 7.5% COLA. We're proposing a 5%, which is less than, so we're trying to keep pace with the cost of living, but we felt that the 7.5% was too high. So we are proposing a 5%, which is 2.5% less than what the resolution that you've adopted directs us to propose. So I just want to make that clear that it's less than that. We did have a little bit of increase in salary and benefits because of that rearranging of staffing positions that I mentioned. But overall, it's not a big increase because we were adjusting, we were eliminating one position. And we do have some merit increases that are scheduled for the next year, benefits, and the COLA that I just mentioned, which is $111,180 cost for the COLA. And so we're balancing out our salaries because of that elimination as well. Okay, moving on.
Madam Chair, just a quick question on that slide. You, Director Kern, you said there's merit on top of the 5%?
Every year we go through evaluations, and there's several employees that are still eligible for merit increases, not many. So if they are eligible, they'll go through that evaluation process, and if it's warranted, those merit increases will be awarded. I don't recall how many. I think it's only a handful, maybe 5 or less employees that are still eligible for merit increases. The cost of the merit increases, if they were implemented, is $69,000.
And what the percentage do those range? 5%.
5%, yes.
All right, thank you.
Uh-huh. So this is just to show you our org chart of our agency. We're a very flat agency. These are our 20 positions that we're proposing in this overall work program and budget. Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to move on to the different funds. So feel free to interrupt me if I'm going too fast. The Service Authority for Freeway Emergencies. This is the $1 that's collected on every vehicle that's registered in Santa Barbara County. We use this to implement our call box program in the past, but there are other eligible uses, and we've been using this over the last few years to help with our traffic solutions department. So the revenues that we're getting is about $543,000. And also this includes the, its income is for $596,000. That's the income, and so we are also using this to do the freeway service patrol as well. So I'll get into the expenditures in the next slide. Okay, we have some formula money that goes in for the freeway emergency vehicle program. So the staff support is just the administration of this. We did a few years back reduce our call boxes on the road, but it really didn't decrease our expenses as huge as I thought it was going to be, because we have a contract for those folks who answer the phone on those calls, and they are there 24/7. So that contract is actually staffing that personnel to answer those calls. So it really doesn't matter if I get 1 call a day or 200. That person has to be there, and that cost is associated with that. So that was something that I'm looking forward to in the future. Maybe we contract directly with CHP rather than having a contractor answer those calls. And I brought that up to Kent Epperson to look into that. But we do have our transportation demand management program that's using these funds to implement the rideshare program because it's an eligible use, and it seems like an efficient way of getting that work done as well. So moving on to the Clean Air Express, we expect $3.3 million in revenue. As you can see here, our fare box revenue is a lot less than it has been in the past, but to compensate for that, we are also getting other sources. So in moving forward, we are eligible for state grants as well as possibly federal grants that we'll be bringing to this board as we can access those monies as the census implementation of our urbanized area expands. We are going to be eligible for additional resources. So I see that as an opportunity for us, for Clean Air Express moving forward. But our fare revenue has decreased because of COVID and where we're going with that. But our ridership is up. So it's maybe it's the percentage of our overall budget of other things funding Clean Air Express as well. So our Clean Air Express expenses, as you can imagine, are professional services. Most of the money goes to paying the contractor who's providing the drivers and maintaining our buses and providing the service. We do have other costs associated with fuel that we also pay for directly rather than going through our contractor, because that eliminates the fluctuation of the fuel prices and whatnot. And then we have some facility improvements that we're budgeting that were required when we took over that facility, some sidewalks that need to be constructed and whatnot. We are also looking at purchasing some buses, and there's $125,000 there to match some grants that we're getting as well. So moving on to Measure A, this is the allocation that was approved by the voters. Not all of Measure A money comes, into the budget because it gets directly allocated to the jurisdictions. But I want to remind you that we have 53 million is what we're expecting over the next year in Measure A. We take some costs off the top of that, and a new one would be our debt service for our TIFIA loan. The 1.4 million is off the top, and our administration expenses and what have you. And then we also have 13% of that, or 13.4% of that, allocated to the 101 project, which is basically taken off the top. And then the remaining money is divvied up between South County and North County based on the formulas that the voters approved back in 2008. But this is just a reminder of that's how we do Measure A. What gets into SBCAG's budget is what projects we are working on and implementing and showing. So 60, and it's a little confusing because it's also including all the money that's been collected over the last 13 years that are now being implemented. So things that we've kept in reserve for those purposes are now getting implemented for those projects. Is there a question?
Yes.
Okay.
Director Nelson.
Yeah, I'm curious on the TIFIA loans for the 101 widening project, correct?
Say that again?
The TIFIA loan is for the 101 widening project?
Yes.
So why isn't that debt service falling under the widening project?
Yes, it's part of the requirement of any debt service is that it comes off the top. It actually backfills our overall cash flow. So while yes, we are getting reimbursed for the TIFIA loan based on expenditures on the 101, overall it helps our overall cash flow, and it's a requirement of the debt service that it gets paid off the top before any funds are distributed.
But that still counts as part of the $140 million.
Yes. Well, it's overall cash flow. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it still counts, but it's not new revenue. It's a loan.
I understand,
So,
I understand cash flow.
Yeah, it's
But it's an expense.
it's an expense
Right.
that we have to account for. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Turn your mic. You want to turn your mic on?
Yeah. Margie, can you go back to that last slide for just a second? Something's not setting well with me. This is the Clean Air Express. Are those all electric buses? Is this operations for all electric buses?
Not yet, but it will be. Our goal is to be all electric by 2040. So we have one electric bus right now in operation. That was a demonstration project that we got funding from the state to do. And so over the next, how many years? Less than 20, we will be converting our fleet to electric based on the law that requires us to do so.
Okay, because I saw that 440,000 for fuel and utilities. I thought, what kind of fuel do you put in an electric bus? So that makes sense that there's only one of them now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to there. So this used to be called our Measure A program, and I'm calling it our capital program because it includes other funding other than Measure A. And obviously in this graphic, you can see 53 or 55% of the funding in our Measure A, or excuse me, our capital program is other sources. So we're leveraging the 25% of Measure A with other sources, and that's the whole point, right? That's why we passed this by the voters, was to leverage those fundings, and it's happening. So yeah, anything. So it has the RCP, the SB1, the TIRSIP, TIRSIP, transit interregional capital, intercity rail capital improvement program. And state of good repair, and the air district is also contributing. We got a grant from the air district to implement some projects. So I just wanted to share that it's more resources than just Measure A. So capital program expenditures, this is the list of projects. Obviously it's very small staff support, but 65 million out of the 67 million is directly going to projects and implementing things. So I'm really proud about that. So with that, I want to summarize. Our core services, our staff, the way we pay for our people and our small team that does big things is through our formula money. The money I get from the state and federal government, I use that, and I'm pretty protective of that. I want to make sure that that's for that purpose and that purpose only. We do side projects. We apply for grants, and we supplement our core services with those grants and with your permission of doing those things. So we do ask for competitive grants to supplement what we do as our core mission. And I think that's a benefit to the region and the agency and our staff because we get to do other things. Measure A has been pretty dang wonderful. I mean, I think I made this point that I looked at our projections for this year that we had like 5 years ago, and we are 10 million higher than we projected 5 years ago. So I'm knock on wood that this is still happening. With COVID and whatnot, I thought we were going to see the opposite happen, and that has not occurred. And I don't want to jinx it, so I'm not going to say anything else about that. So the general fund is very healthy. We have a policy for me is to keep 4 months of operations in our reserves in case something happens that the state government decides not to fund us for, the federal government shuts down, it decides not to fund us, the planning function for a certain amount of time. So I have 4 months in reserves to keep us moving and keep us going and make sure we're able to pay for our salaries until that gets resolved. And then last but not least, the reason why you're hearing this so early is because I have to submit this to the state by May 12th. And so what my plan is to have this on your next agenda for adoption, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or comments or concerns that you may have.
All right, any questions? Director Capps.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Director Kern. I would just have 2 questions about electric vehicles. When you mentioned electrification, the sort of infrastructure of charging stations, what is the SBCAG role in that, and is there any role in making sure that they work? Because I know that's a top concern for consumers.
So right now we're looking at locations of where that may be best served, and then we would work with the jurisdictions of those locations, or I would assume that it would be a public location where other people can do it, but it could be private parking lots and whatnot, and we would work with those owners to implement the infrastructure and maybe subsidize that installation. I don't think that SBCAG would own them. Yeah, it would be the service provider of the electricity that would probably own. I don't know. So do you have an answer to that? Sure.
Thank you.
Through the chair, Director Capps. We're actually coming to your board in 2 months on this.
Okay.
The biggest thing for us right now is we've identified locations recommended, and then there's actually a federal notice of funding opportunity that just came out this week. So we'd want to get direction from your board on submitting a funding application and then working with Caltrans as well as local partners on how to actually get the funding and then implement it. So we work with the local partners on that.
Great. I look forward to hearing more. So this is a new initiative.
Yes, we received a Caltrans planning grant
Great.
2 years ago, and we're doing a 6-county plan, and that will be coming to your board with an update on that.
Excellent. I look forward to that. Great. Second question was related to what my colleague asked about the fuel of the Clean Air Express. I guess I was under the impression that these were electric vehicles, but I just want to make sure that you all are aware, and you probably are because you're very thorough, but that Senator Padilla successfully got in the Inflation Reduction Act rebates for tax-exempt organizations like us to be able to speed up those plans. And so I just want to make sure we're utilizing that federal money that just went into existence January 1st.
Yes, absolutely. We're working on the technology to catch up to,
Okay.
with over-the-road coaches. That's what the one bus that we did purchase a year ago, it was a demonstration to see if it could handle the grades and the distance and the service, to be frank, because it's a long route. And charging in between those routes is not, so we have to make sure that it works, and that's what we're doing right now with the demonstration bus that we have. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Actually, I do have one more question related to encouraging alternative modes of transportation, but there had been talk, I understand, from colleagues about a potential overcrossing in Goleta. Is that at all on the radar? Could that be?
That it has been in discussions with the city of Goleta, and it's in the Measure A program as a regional project listed. So they have not moved forward on that at this point in time. And so we bring it up every year, and so far has not moved forward. So
Okay, thank you.
Be honest with you.
Any questions from Santa Maria?
None here.
All right. Any questions from remote Director Williams?
No, no questions. Thank you.
No problem. All right.
Thank you.
Back to the
I
dais.
would just
Director Nelson.
maybe I would just add the urgency to move from the location phase to the implementation phase on some of these chargers. It's sort of like the money's there. There's funding mechanisms for a lot of it. And I think honestly, in general, not anybody in particular's fault, but in general, I would call Santa Barbara County behind other surrounding counties, even behind places like the city of San Luis Obispo in large implementation of chargers that are accessible by consumers.
Okay, thank you.
Director Nelson.
Yes, thank you, Chair Osborne. A quick question on Clean Air Express expenses. It has that staff support. Does that roll up into the general fund? Or is that on top of the general fund?
That's a good question. The general fund gets reimbursed by this, so it does get reimbursed into the general fund.
So same thing with the
SAFE and the Measure
highway.
A. Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure that was.
But I wanted to be clear that, if there is staff resources appointed to it, but it gets paid for through the general fund. Yes. So it's a revenue source for the general fund.
All right, and then, going to slide 26, which is the capital programs expenditures. I know we're working tirelessly on the 101 widening project, and I'm going to sound like a broken record talking about and advocating for, investments in some of the North County projects. I've been engaged at SBCAG for about 10 years, only 2 years as a member, but as staff for prior to that. And this has been the trend for quite some time, that most of the expenditures that we're making are to that. And I understand the importance of that, but at the same time, I think we've been patient, and we need to start to be looking forward and bringing regional dollars back to the North County. I mean, a decade or more now that we've underinvested up there is starting to have its impacts, especially through the storms. We keep on talking about equity in this county, but we've not been equitable, at least for the last decade. So I think that shift needs to happen. I think we should have a count on the $140 million that we committed to that on some of these sheets, so that we can see where that's spending down, so that before and how we start to spend those monies in the future. Because I don't want to make sure that we over commit to the widening project more than what we've done to the taxpayers, unless we want to go back to taxpayers and ask for more money for that.
Yeah.
That's an option as well. But I really want to be a
Yeah. Can I comment on that?
keep an eye on it. Yeah. So that's one of my concerns.
Yeah. We do keep an expenditure account of that, and it's included in the annual Measure A expenditure. So it's included on your agenda today of what's been collected and what's been expended to date on all the projects in the Measure A program. It's the last page.
Yeah. I'm specifically interested in the 101 widening project.
Yeah, and that's a line item on that report. So, yeah.
Okay. So that was where I was at with it. So, I'm hoping that in future budgets that we have, when we look at the capital programs, that we start to see that start to shift to more equitable expenditures. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
All right, any more questions before we ask if there's any public comment? Director Perotti.
Well, I just have a comment, not a question. I just want to thank staff for this great report. And it's always so gratifying to see all the accomplishments. And that's why this report is so important, not only to us to see all the accomplishments, but to the public, and then what our forward vision is in the future. So I just want to thank you for the report.
Appreciate the feedback. Thank you. Yeah, so we do have the expenditure annual report up, and you can zoom in. You don't have a mic. You don't have a mic.
Yes, so this is required by, the board has a public outreach component to the Measure A program, and so we put out an annual report every year that's reviewed by the Measure A Citizens Oversight Committee, as well as our technical advisory committees. And so at the end, we do have this fiscal profile of the measure and what is currently for the 2021-2022 year, that it's the 22 annual report, and then what's cumulative here. So it is that accounting that you talked about. And so I will provide you a link, and then everyone will get the press release, and then you'll get printed copies of this as well. So, yeah.
Is there any request for public comment on this item?
Chair, we do have one request for public comment, but I also see someone hand raised and not sure what they need. So let me ask Mr. Kent to go ahead and speak real quick. Mr. Kent, are you asking for public comment?
Yeah, I don't know if this is the proper time, but I did have a comment concerning the timing involved of the Santa Claus Lane streetscape
Oh,
project.
that's our next item, so I'm going to just put you.
Okay,
Just
thank
go ahead and lower your hand. I'll lower it for you, and we'll get you then. Thank you. Okay,
Okay.
first, Mr. Scott Wentz has a public comment.
All right.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Scott Wins, representing myself, I want to make it absolutely clear that I've not discussed any of my comments with the CAB board or any other NGO or outside organizations. I'm asking what the hell's going on here. You're going to bake in a inflationary rate into your staff salaries of 5%. So are you going to reverse that when the inflation rate goes back or it goes into deficit? No. Government is out of control. It used to be if you're a government employee, and let me make this clear, I have absolutely no personal issue here with anybody that's working here for this organization, for the county, or any of the cities. You used to be that if you were a government employee, you got 10% less than what the private sector got. Why? Because you were guaranteed a salary, you were guaranteed your retirement, you were guaranteed your summer vacations. I work 7 days a week in my private business. I'm losing money. I'm in the position right now because of the stupid inflationary politics that are coming out of Washington, compounded by what's going on in Sacramento, is killing me. I cannot afford the $200, $250 plumbing costs that I now have to be charged whenever I have to have something fixed. You talk about carbon neutral and all the rest of this junk. Does your staff know that a German company using Argentina did a proof of concept last year of a carbon neutral gasoline? Not carbon neutral, not carbon plus, but a negative. They are drawing carbon out of the air and producing gasoline. They have now transferred their operations to the United States to prove proof of concept for this going on as an ongoing basis. Technology is outstripping your electric buses. The concepts of let's go ahead and let's mine lithium, let's put cobalt, let's give the LPA and the CCP, which is the Liberation People's Army of the Chinese Communist Party, a whole bunch of money so we can buy this stuff. I don't get this. And it's time that, and the reason I'm here is because every one of you represents a city or a district. Isn't it time you turned around and said, hey, by the way, SEIU, and I can't say what I'd like to say. This is no longer an issue of being able to afford it. The United States cannot afford it. The state of California cannot afford this.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is that the last of the public comments?
That was the last request for public comment,
All
Chair
right.
Osborne.
I'll bring it back to the board for discussion or a motion.
You don't need a motion.
Oh, I don't need, oh, because it's just a presentation. We'll bring back for a decision at a later meeting. Thank you. All right. Item 6B.
Item 6B, Santa Claus Lane Streetscape Project. Approve and authorize the chair to sign a memorandum of understanding with the County of Santa Barbara for SBCAG to reimburse the county for construction expenditures for the Santa Claus Lane Streetscape Project in amount not to exceed $9,865,000, including funding of $7,040,000 from the Solutions for Congested Corridors program under Senate Bill 1 and $2,825,000 from Measure A with a period of performance ending June 30th, 2027.
Mr. Luna, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Chair Osborne and directors. Good to be here again. So, purpose of today's presentation is to give an update to this board on the coastal access projects that SBCAG has been working on closely with the County of Santa Barbara Public Works and Caltrans. Projects that were funded in Cycle 1 of Senate Bill 1, and specifically take some actions for the Santa Claus Lane Streetscape Project. This presentation was given to our sub-regional committees last week. It's essentially the same presentation, a few modest changes, so I'll highlight those. So the primary focus of today's item is that we're asking this board to commit an additional $2.8 million in Measure A funds to be added to existing Senate Bill 1 funds that were received in Cycle 1, approximately $7 million. And as you had heard in the recommendation, the total cost for the initial phase of construction is about $9.8 million. This allows us to move forward with securing those Senate Bill 1 funds, as indicated in the staff report. We've had some challenges in the project delivery. I'll get into some of the details with the how we've worked with county staff to phase that. Chris Sneddon is here, Deputy Director from County Public Works, if there are any specific questions on the project. And what we want to cover today, in addition to, is really focus in on the impacts of delivering this project versus not delivering this project. And I think we had an opportunity to discuss that candidly at the North County Subregionals, but I'm happy to answer any questions regarding that. And then talk about the next steps for the recommendation, how we're going to implement this working with the county. That would require entering into an MOU for the construction phase and then moving forward with that. And then we'll review some next steps. So just real quickly, today we're going to be talking about progress and change. And so progress, I think that's the good news side. We've made a lot of progress in the sense of delivering projects. We have some actions at statewide level at the California Transportation Commission, where funding of the remaining county projects are going to be voted this month. And then the changes is the request for additional funds. So Mark Twain put it in this way: I'm in favor of progress, but change I don't like. And so the projects that were funded initially in Cycle 1 were those that, if you can see, those are highlighted in orange in the middle there. There was 3 projects that the county received money in the package for the multimodal corridor for Cycle 1. Real quickly, the North Padaro project, if you can highlight that one, Lauren, that was a project that received its construction allocation from the California Transportation Commission last summer. And we just understand that that'll be going to construction and starting work next week. And then in Summerlin, there's also 2 separate components that will be delivered by the county. That will also be voted at this month's California Transportation Commission meeting. It came in at the program level, so we're happy to say that. There's improvements on the inland side and then on the beach side. So on the beach side, there'll be coastal parking that you can see it's called Summerlin Area Coastal Access Improvements. And then on the inland side, there's improvements along Via Real that includes pedestrian and equestrian improvements. All of them will enhance the coastal trail network and improve coastal access. And they were included as balancing projects for Highway 101. Lastly, the Santa Claus Lane Streetscape project, you can see that as off to the right there is the project we're going to be talking about today. Next slide. So just to overview, I've mentioned this already, is Santa Claus Lane Streetscape was one of those 3 projects that was included in our multimodal corridor application. And those will be, the 2 remaining ones will be voted this month at the California Transportation Commission for their construction phase funding. We have worked with the county and state officials to receive time extensions on these projects, and so we're out of time. They need to be voted this month, and so we made that point pretty clear at the sub-regional committee meetings. Funding by SBCAG. So SBCAG receives the funding through a baseline agreement from the California Transportation Commission, and then we have passed that on through to the county to implement. They're the leads for the project, and they have taken the leadership role to deliver the projects through design, right-of-way, and permits, and then now into construction. And again, a reminder, these projects are part of the coastal development permit that Caltrans received as the applicant for the Highway 101 improvements, and they are documented in the local coastal program amendment that the county approved for the impacts from Highway 101 as balancing components. Next slide. So just to give you some context as to the SB1 funding, I'm going to focus on that. Since I touched on the first bullet already, I'm going to focus on the second bullet initially. These 3 projects that the county received, of the $184 million that was received in cycle 1, $20 million was for construction of these 3 projects. And then $7 million was specifically for the Santa Claus Lane project. So today we're asking, as I mentioned before, an additional $2.8 million in local funding to supplement that. And in the context of the overall picture of completing the 101 corridor in December of last year, SBK and Caltrans submitted applications to a number of programs under Senate Bill 1 to fully fund the remaining segments of the corridor in the order of $270 million. And we should be expecting awards in June. That's the current schedule. And so by not delivering on this current project, that could impact our Cycle 3 application. Next slide. So I indicated I would be sharing some good news, so here's the good news. So when we identified that this project was going to have some delivery challenges, there was a real possibility that the funds from Senate Bill 1, the $7 million, could be forfeited. And so we had to come up with a plan to phase this project, deliver the components that were most important to meet the goals of the Solutions for Congested Corridor program. That included building the Class 1 bikeway along Santa Claus Lane and some of the coastal parking that is in the commercial district to really reduce the further impacts to the business owners along that area. And so that was essentially the focus of building phase 1. The county responded quickly to develop a phasing plan, which we then presented to Caltrans and CTC staff, and they approved of that such that they called it a minor scope change, doesn't require any further action, and that we just have to follow up with our intent and proposal for how we're going to implement the rest of phase 2, and I'll get into that shortly. On the overall context, again, we've talked about the need for an additional $2.8 million to allow the CTC to vote this next week at their meeting. They want to see a fully funded project, so the $2.8 million will fully fund phase 1. And then it shouldn't be lost by the fact that the North Padaro project was delivered by the county at quite a significant cost reduction, $2.5 million. So on balance, that money was put back into the corridor, specifically to two projects, the bikeway, Santa Claus Lane Bikeway project, and then some of that money was moved into Highway 101 improvements. Next slide. So this slide just showed, it was a tool exhibit that we used to convey the information to staff at both the California Transportation Commission and Caltrans headquarters, and essentially focused on what we are going to be able to do with phase one. And we used some of the renderings that we had developed for this, but it essentially focused, like I mentioned before, on the top in the middle, there's a rendering of the Class 1 bikeway, and then on the right in the middle is the coastal parking in the commercial district. And then at the very bottom, there's the turnaround component. This is really to make the ramp work a lot better for the Santa Claus Lane southbound on-ramp. And that money that I mentioned that was saved from North Bardaro was leveraged back into the Santa Claus Lane Bikeway. So that actually is completed and in use. And we were able to open that early and avoid multiple ramp closures at that location. Next slide. So this matrix just generally summarizes some of what I've already indicated, but just to focus in on the key things related to phase two, and I talked about our requirement to come up with a phase two plan as a next step. So what was deferred in phase two, if you look at the bottom two rows, was coastal parking in the beach and recreation area, bathrooms that are being implemented by county parks in conjunction with that, and then the UPR grade crossing. This is an improved grade crossing for the beach users at that area, and that is also a component that is being worked on by county parks in conjunction with Public Works. Next slide. So as I mentioned before, we have to come up with a phasing plan for this. County parks and Public Works have identified a conceptual estimate for phase two. We continue to need to refine, but the overall cost is estimated at $12.5 million, of which $2 million includes bathroom components that were never included in our original SB1 application. These are not eligible components under Senate Bill 1, and so we've indicated throughout that the county needs to take a leadership role on seeking that with help from SBCAG and Caltrans as far as project information. So we will continue to work with them on that. Next slide. We also had to come up with timing and funding components. This is just information that we've put together in the last month or so and has yet to be presented to Caltrans headquarters and CTC staff, but these is generally for the board's information. Some programs that we would be looking at to help fund this program. We were told that we have up to 5 years to deliver phase two. That does give us some opportunities to look at near-term programs, and they were listed there in that table on the right, from the active transportation program and the next cycle of Senate Bill 1 that would be coming up in a year and a half, Clean California program, which does allow the funding of bathrooms, so that would be one program that could meet that. Measure A, Pet and Bike would be another program to help match some of those state funding and state gas tax funding in a regional pot. Yeah, I think that does it. Thanks, Lauren. So for the board's consideration, as I'm wrapping up here, we just wanted to mention again that this Santa Claus Lane Streetscape project is a project that is documented in the Coastal Development Permit and a balancing project in the Local Coastal Program Amendment. From the CTC's perspective, they are reviewing this project. They've already, they would like to see a fully funded project, as I mentioned, in order to take action next week. So the $2.8 million, if the board approves that today, would show that. And then I mentioned as well as our cycle 3 applications are under review for fully funding the projects, and that would be being able to deliver this project would be a good message to the CTC on that item. Next slide. So finally, the recommendations that we're asking the board today is that the board authorize the chair to sign an MOU with the county to construct phase 1 of the Santa Claus Lane project, and then recommend that Measure A funds in the amount of $2.825 million be added to the existing 7.04 million of SB1 funds to construct phase 1 and allow this Santa Claus Lane project to be allocated by the CTC. And I think that's it. I'll open it up to questions. Oh, next steps and milestones. I think quickly here, just focusing in on the delivery timeline, we have a plan to perhaps ask for a time extension, which will allow a little more time to refine the package that the county is going to be putting forward for construction, and that would go to the CTC in August. And then the plan is to avoid impacts in the business district, not to build during the summertime, so try to start that work in early 2024. Now I think I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, questions? Anyone in, oh, Director Nelson.
Yes, thank you, Chair Osborne. The bathroom just really catches my eye here on this project. So that's a condition of the permit, if I understand correctly?
Yes, in our negotiations, and Mr. Eid will probably remember this as well, when we were sitting at the table, was that we specifically mentioned to the county staff that this component is not likely eligible with any funding sources that Caltrans and SBCAG have discretion over. It was decided to be included anyways in the local coastal program amendment.
And that's a mitigation measure as part of the 101 widening.
They call it a balancing project, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Director Williams.
So what I'm understanding from this presentation and the last two that we saw last week is that this is a required balancing project under our existing permits, and dropping the ball on it would look bad while we're going to the California Transportation Commission to ask for another 129 million, right?
It's 270, that our current application, and yes, those are the optics of it right now.
Back to you, Director Nelson.
Yes, thank you. So mitigation, balancing, this is the semantics, right? I mean, this is a condition of the permit.
It is.
Okay,
yeah.
That's all. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. It's documented in the permit, yeah.
Any other questions before we go to public comment? None? All right, we'll open the floor for public comment. Is there anyone who would like to speak?
Thank you, Chair Osborne. We have two requests for public comment. The first will be Mr. Joe Armendariz, followed by Mr. Steve Kent.
All right. Mr. Armendariz, the floor is yours.
Go ahead, Mr. Armendariz.
Good morning. Joe Armendariz, representing, I don't know, all that's good about this project. Let me just say, I appreciate Mr. Luna's point about the optics of it. I think the other optics of it are that, first of all, the disruption that this project has imposed on a lot of the property owners and merchants on Santa Claus Lane is really quite significant and substantial. And I would hope that this board would do whatever it takes this morning to continue moving this project forward. A lot of the economic metrics that are, I think, relevant to the businesses along Santa Claus Lane are inextricably linked to what this project is gonna represent a year and a half from now or 2 years from now. And I think that, as you know, I've come to you asking for supplemental monies to try to make some of these businesses whole. I've been a catastrophic failure in that regard, although I remain optimistic that maybe we can do something along those lines. But I think at the very, very minimum, we have to make sure this project gets completed so that those businesses, property owners, merchants, a year from now, 2 years from now, can really start to enjoy the benefits of this investment. And so my strong encouragement to you is that you would do that, and that this will happen as it's been proposed for many, many years now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Kent, it's your turn now.
Thank you very much, Chairperson Nelson and other directors. I appreciate this opportunity to speak. I will be brief. I'll just say that myself officially and the others, property owners and business owners down on Santa Claus Lane, have been impacted already by some of the preliminary work that has been done in preparation for the streetscape project. We feel like the streetscape project will be great, but currently the businesses are struggling to get through all the closures of Highway 101 as the widening project goes on, as well as COVID and other issues. So we're quite eager to put some of the obstacles we've dealt with behind us and move forward. And just want to say that we feel like the project, especially the streetscape work that will be done in and around the retail area, is very crucial to our future. We appreciate Supervisor Williams and Chris Doolittle, the project manager, who's been great about interacting with all the property owners and business owners there. And just say that whatever is needed, please make the magic happen for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No further comments?
That's all public comment.
All right, thank you. All right, I'll bring it back to the board. Director Nelson.
Yes, just want to confirm that the allocation of Measure A funds is a part of the 101 widening pool.
It is. It's coming out of that project fund.
Thank you.
Chair Osborne, Director Williams has his hand raised.
All right, Director Williams.
Well, I just want to support the staff recommendation that we allocate the additional funds. I know it's painful, especially for you folks in the North County, to keep on seeing some of these cost overruns on our existing bevy of projects, because you're understandably anxious to see some of these our project attention move to the north. But we got to finish this. The impact to the business district, not really so much of this, but because of the 101 widening project itself, has been really significant. Some will not survive the one round of pain, but 2 rounds of pain would be really debilitating. I think that's one factor. And then, of course, the other factor is, we don't want a situation where we drop the ball on one of our own projects that has received funding from the CTC if we want to go back to the CTC for money.
Director Lavanino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, count me as one of the people that want to see North County projects move forward as fast as possible. And I think the way to do that is to approve this funding, because this is all about timing. The only way we're going to finish the 101 and concentrate on North County projects is to finish the 101. And the only way we're going to do that is to get funding from the CTC. And the only way we're going to do that is if we pony up the extra 2.8. I mean, that's the way it looks like to me. So, and the other thing is, I don't look at the 101 widening as just strictly a South County project. This is the biggest asset, regional asset that we have. And whenever we lobby, wherever we're in Sacramento or wherever in DC, we talk about the farmers in North County being able to, get to their markets easier. We talk about Vandenberg Space Force Base being able to move product and people. So, yeah, it's painful, and it's, the roads conditions up in North County have suffered. And I'm hoping that, the focus will shift at some point, but right now, we got to get this thing done. So if Supervisor Williams or Director Williams, if that was a motion, I would be happy to second it.
I'll move staff recommendation.
Director Nelson.
Yes, and I'm actually going to support the motion as well. I'm not against this. I just like to continue to make sure that we're all very aware that this isn't a South County project, that you're absolutely correct. That's why there was a set aside for $140 million in Measure A right there, you know, in black and white, that off the top, we're gonna pay $140 million and then we're gonna split things evenly after that. I just wanna make sure that we stick to that and that it's not only the $140 million at the top. We've been making sure that most of the regional dollars coming to Santa Barbara County for the last 15 years has been going to this project. And that's a big, significant hit. A lot of our other jurisdictions would often access those regional dollars for their projects. And those have been, that's really hurt their budgets as well. And their ability to do maintenance is because there's a lot of suction there. And so I'm with you. I want to get it done as quickly as possible so we can start to focus on the north. But I do want to, you know, send a message that I do think we need to start shifting the conversation and start doing some parallel work. That's a good word, right? Parallel. So we're going to do some parallel work in the North County to start to get some of those projects ready to be for construction as soon as we can get through this this process with the widening project. Thank you.
Thank you. And as chair and sort of in the middle of everything and not on the 101, I will say that what's really important about this is that we all agreed to it, but there's many that are been serving on this for a long time and they remember it, and there's many that are new. And so it's important that we share this information and share the plan and continue to work forward on what we you know, one group agreed to and got the voters to agree to, and continue to make that clear to the current residents and the newer members on this board, so that we do complete this project and we do then focus to the northern end of the 101 and the additional projects. So again, it is a partnership, and that's one of the things that makes this difficult decision easier to support, is that we are seeing the success, we are seeing lessons learned, which should help make the northern end projects even easier to do because of all the lessons we've learned along the way on the south end. So there's some cost savings we're learning along the way. All right, we have a motion and a second. Can I have a roll call vote, please? Oh,
I'm sorry.
all right, you're ready to vote. Okay, I was making sure. Okay, all right, ready to vote. Awesome, awesome, we love you. Awesome.
Director Williams.
Aye.
Capps.
Aye.
Hartman.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Lavanino.
Aye.
Infante.
Aye.
Julian.
Aye.
King.
Aye.
Patino.
Aye.
Perotti.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Rouse.
Aye.
And Chair Osborne.
Aye.
Motion passes 13-0.
Thank you. All right, final item 6C for review and discussion.
Madam Chairperson, members of the board, if we would like to continue this item to a future meeting, the plan was not quite ready for presentation, so we'll schedule it for a future meeting with your permission. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So we will move on to 1-minute reports. Any 1-minute reports here in Santa Barbara? Director Capps.
Thank you, Chair Osborne. I just wanted to give a quick housing element update in terms of Second District, that we've been working hard with planning and development here in the county to add some more sites into the mix, and that'll be conveyed in due time. But as Director Plowman said on a housing forum yesterday, there's at least 7 new county sites that are being considered now, as well as, thanks to public comment, about 15 other additional sites that are now in the mix. So a lot of work on behalf of my Brown Act partner and I, Supervisor Hartman. I just wanted to give that. Oh, and UCSB, exactly, good point. So UCSB's plans for employee housing is also now in the mix. Thank you.
Director Perotti.
Well, I have a couple announcements. Well, first, a thank you to Caltrans. The Freeway 101 between Fairview and Patterson's looking really, really great. And it's appreciated by so many of our community members that are noticing, and thank you for that. Also, thank you for the public noticing for the Equal Fowler, which will be coming, that project will be coming soon, and we're doing our best to get the information out as well. So thank you for that. Just a quick announcement about our community State of the City, which is coming up on April the 10th, which is a Monday. It'll be at the Elks Lodge again. This is a free event starting at 5, and the program will actually start at 6. So if you would like to come, please come. And then on April the 20th, we're having the State of the Cities. So I don't know how many of us are going to be able to be here. So just, I know my alternate will be here, but just a heads up on that. And thank you. That's my report.
And anyone else in Santa Barbara? All right, anyone in Santa Maria?
Excuse me. Director Williams has his hand raised.
Oh, Director Williams.
If you guys looked at the noticing, I'm up in Monterey representing most of your jurisdictions on the 3CE Executive Board, the Central Coast Community Energy Executive Board. And last night was also Tom Habashi's retirement. So the transition of outgoing CEO Tom Habashi and incoming CEO Rob Shaw is now complete. And then Tuesday, we have a very important vote where San Luis Obispo County is debating whether to join 3CE. And I would just ask any of you that have good relationships with your colleagues on the San Luis Obispo Board of Supervisors to reach out to them and, tell them, why to join 3CE. For them, it means better rates for their constituents and more incentives for electric vehicles and so forth, and more carbon-free acquisition of energy. But for us, it would mean a place, San Luis Obispo, that has literally 800 megawatts of unused transmission and an amount of well, let's just say a jurisdiction that actually has the land and the permitting regime where renewable projects could be possible within our service territory. For reliability and for cost, these would be also very beneficial to us. So, if you have a good relationship with any of your San Luis Obispo County supervisors across the border, I would implore you to reach out to them.
Thank you. Anyone in Santa Maria?
No one here. Thank you.
All right. The City of Lompoc State of the City address will be April 26th. We made sure not to schedule any conflicts and looked at every calendar possible, so come on down if you'd like to hear how our community's doing, which is a whole lot better than it used to be, so thank you for that. All right, moving on, we'll go to item number 8 and the Executive Director's Report. Ms. Kern?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairperson, members of the board. Yes, we were aware of that conflict, but we do have to have a meeting because we do need to adopt our budget. So we are trying to make it very small agenda, and hopefully, I think that meeting starts a little later, I think 11, if I remember correctly, no? Oh. Okay, so we're trying to accommodate as much as possible there. For my report, I'd like to thank Mayor Patino for attending the CalCog conference last week. This was 3 days of a lot of information, and she got inundated with, and she was a trooper. I was unable to attend because I was not feeling well, so thank you to my staff and Mayor Patino for representing SBCAG well at the CalCog conference last week. We had our Central Coast Coalition Legislative Day yesterday, and it was a packed day and was exhausted by the end of it. We found out that our representatives have formed a Central Coast caucus between the Senate and the Assembly, and they are modeling after what we've been doing for the past 10 years in the Central Coast Coalition. They've also included Ventura in that caucus, so I'm really pleased to hear that. It was good information. I think we can use that caucus moving forward to bring more attention to the Central Coast and our needs and our voting power there. And last but not least, Fred mentioned this in his report, but the county is starting their Padaro Lane Coastal Access Project next week. And so we're looking forward to getting these projects done and off our books so we can enjoy the benefits of them and not have to fund them anymore. So thank you so much. And I do want to point one last thing, Director Nelson. We are we have fully funded the Robinson Bridge project. It's not in the next fiscal year, but that is on our books. And then the projects in Santa Maria, the city of Santa Maria is, we have an agreement with them to move that project forward. So they are doing the pre-construction work on that. And once it's in the queue on our Measure A to get reimbursed, that agreement's already in place. So as soon as they're ready, we can move those projects forward. So just want to report on that. I was remiss in not including that in my budget. So thank you.
That's great news. Thank you, Margie.
And with that, I'll turn it back over to the chair. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. All right, that's very exciting news. Yeah. I mean, it's so much more than we've ever been able to say. So saying Robinson Bridge is fully funded is like, woo. Okay, I'll contain my excitement until the meeting's done. Item number 9, our Caltrans District Director's Report with our new District Director, Scott Eads. Welcome and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate that. And exciting to be here in person. And I have actually several items, so I know we're running short on time, so I'll try to make this quick. First, a staffing update. I have appointed an acting person to fill back in for my previous role as the Deputy District Director for Transportation Planning and Local Assistance. This person is Kelly McClendon, and he has recently been working with the headquarters freight planning program and previously worked in District 5 over our investment planning and system planning branch. So he's going to do a great job in this acting role until we fill it with a permanent replacement. Happy to provide contact information if you're looking for that in the future. Okay, winter storm update. A lot going on throughout the district. A lot going on throughout the district. It's been rough this last week, actually this year, but this last week has been a challenge as well. So quick updates in Santa Barbara County. As most of you are already aware, Lompoc, we have one-way traffic control south of Lompoc, just north of Halama Road. And we do not have an estimated reopening date at this point in time, but traffic can pass through there.
And you have additional work going on that started this morning that I was unaware of and got caught in.
Sorry. And apparently additional work going on in that area.
Further south on the one?
Okay. Wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, they were moving some giant rocks and backing up traffic for
Okay.
like half a mile, a little bit further south than the stoplight.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's a good point. I drove over 154 and was surprised by some traffic control as well.
Yeah.
We have a ton of cleanup efforts going on all over the place. I would strongly recommend checking Quick Maps, although I did on this morning, and the traffic control that I found was not on Quick Maps. But
So
we
just
do
so you know, as much as you're trying, it's not all there still. Got it.
understand. We do try to keep it updated, but there is a lot going on, and there's a lot of slip outs and areas where there's debris on the roadways, and we're doing what we can to clean that up. And sometimes there will be lane closures that pop up and then go away as we're doing that. 135, we have a closure from Bell Street in Los Alamos to Harris Grade near Vandenberg. We do not have a reopening date on that one either because there's a lot going on there. Route 33, Cayuma to Ojai, we're closed from the, oh my gosh, Matilla Hot Springs Road to Ozina Fire Station. We do not have a opening time on that one either. All of those are somewhat weather related. And 150 is now fully open all the way to Ojai. And there's a lot of other closures far north that probably aren't of primary interest to you. I will say that Big Sur Coast remains closed. We've expanded the number of locations where we have slides and washouts, and so we're addressing those, but the closure limits have grown, unfortunately. On the positive note, we had Highway 1 in Santa Cruz at the Monterey-Santa Cruz County line close near Pajaro. You probably have seen on national news the situation there with the levee break. We were able to open that, both lanes of highway traffic on Highway 1 back open to traffic last night and this morning. So that's really great news. There was some potential it would be closed for an extended period of time. All right, other upcoming news, Clean California Community Days. There's a few that I just want to highlight. One is a dump day in Santa Barbara County at the Community West Bank in Goleta on the 25th of this month. There's mattress recycling that's ongoing at Cleaner Earth Company in Santa Maria, and community cleanup at multiple locations. Santa Maria in the Action Santa Maria in Action is hosting at the Grogan Park parking lot. And it's the cleanup area is from North Blosser to West Taylor to Atlantic Place on the 18th of this month from 9 to 10 a.m. City of Santa Barbara is hosting a cleanup on March 18th from 9 a.m. to noon at the Cacique Alisos intersection. And Essence of Earth is hosting a cleanup in Guadalupe on March 18th from 9 to 11. All of these are probably somewhat weather dependent, so please, if you're interested in participating in one of those, you might want to check check with the local events on those. And then just a reminder, I've mentioned this in the past, Clean California Local Grant Program. It's $100 million that's available. Applications are due on April 28th by 5 p.m. and more information can be found online. And then I know we mentioned this at both the North Coast and or North County and South Coast subregionals, but again, Highway 217 San Jose Creek Bridge Replacement Project is about to begin. It'll begin in April, and we do expect delays. So just want to make sure everybody is aware of that. We're doing what we can to mitigate that, and then there'll be additional construction happening this summer that will exacerbate some of those delays. So I just will continue to remind everyone those projects are upcoming. They're important projects, but there will be some pain associated with the construction process, and we're doing what we can to mitigate that. That's all I have. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Any questions from Santa Maria? All right. Hearing none, thank you very much. And thanks again. Again, it was just a surprise. I think maybe they'd had an additional slide with the most recent rain and probably stopped to clear that so that the road would stay open, but it was a surprise. But thanks for all the work you're doing on that and keeping us informed on that. All right, item number 10, committee meetings. Director Williams, do you have a report out from LoSAM board meeting you would like to share?
We did meet 2 weeks ago, received some updates on some of the track work that's happening down in the border between San Luis Obispo and, I'm sorry, not San Luis Obispo, that's on my mind, between Orange County and San Diego counties. This is extensive track work to reorient the track from a slide and to get service fully restored. So it's, it's definitely hurts the service. People want to know that it's going to be working whenever they do it. So we're hoping to get it done as fast as possible. And I would say that's the biggest item update.
Thank you. All right, thanks for a great meeting. We will adjourn to the next meeting that we will attempt to make a short agenda so you can get to the Chambers, South County Chambers update for April 20th, 2023 in Santa Maria, California. Thank you.
And I just want to remind all the board members and alternates who are going to be attending the new board orientation meeting, which you all accepted on your Outlook. It's going to begin at 8 o'clock in Santa Maria.
All righty.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
The orientation meeting, I know that Chair or Mr. Roush, you're not going to be attending. So, thank you.